We back. We live. Welcome back to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast Rum Shot Diaries Cuss Out Sessions. You know what it is by now? It's the spin-off. It's a spin-off. It's not a podcast edition or episode. It's not even a Rum Shot Diaries episode. This is just the spin-off that we call the Cuss Out Sessions, where we take a topic or an issue that's kind of on the forums right now and being debated, and we chew the fat over it, you know? We go into it and we give our opinion on it, and then we let you lot come in the comments and cuss us out for saying what we think. So what's the issue today? What's the issue that we're going to go into? It's going to be the following. In fact, you know what? I thought I had this all prepared in terms of something to come on the screen, but you know what I'm like? I've messed it all up. But the issue that we're going to look at today is the Test 11. Who gets in your side versus Pakistan? Remember, the first test kicks off, bowls off, I should say, on August the 12th, Thursday, August the 12th. So we're about 5 days out from the first test starting. And there's been a lot of discussion. I wouldn't say consternation, but there's been a lot of discussion with regards to who should make that 11, who should be in it, who shouldn't be in it, etc. So I'm just going to give you a quick little cuss out here. Quick little cuss out session, giving you my opinion on the matter. And I look forward to your comments below. You know the deal by now if you've been watching all the other cuss outs we've done. So we've done one on Shimron, one on Darren Bravo, one on Chris Gale. This is the fourth cuss out session where we're looking at the makeup of the test side. So you know the makeup of how we do this. Like, comment, share. And we'll get back in the comments to you. Whatever you put in, we'll reply, and so on and so forth. Your support helps grow everything we do with the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. I didn't even start the normal way. My name is Machel St. Patrick Hewitt, and I'm one half of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. But let's get straight into it. And look at this Test 11. So, over the last 4 days, 4 days, there has been a best versus best match that's been going on in Kingston, Jamaica. The 2 test matches, remember, will be taking place at Sabina Park. And first things first, before we dive into that and look at the promising performances that have taken place in best versus best, it's important to point out that the Trini players only turned up on, was it Friday? Was it yesterday even, or was it Thursday? So the Trini players haven't been part of this best versus best game. So this kind of already throws a spanner in the works in terms of how much do you take into account the best versus best game, which is important, but how much do you take that into account versus the fact that the Trini players haven't had a chance to play in it? And I'm going to find out, and I'll post it up on Twitter. You can see on the screen right now. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram at Carib Cricket, and I'll post up on Twitter when I get confirmation of this in terms of will there be a second warm-up game, even if it's only a 2-day game, to make sure that the Trini players have got some practice in the middle ahead of the test match, because that's slightly concerning that they wouldn't have gone into it. They wouldn't have gone into the test match having had a warm-up game, and it looks like their practice will only be net practice, which isn't a bad thing, but it's not competitive sport, obviously. Now, let's look at who's played well. Let's get that out of the way first and foremost. So, and I'm recording this at the time of not yet releasing what happened on the final day, I hasten to add. So what I'm about to say is based off the first 3 days. So this is Craig Brathwaite's side having batted twice, and for argument's sake, I'll call it Shea Holt's side. I haven't yet got their results from their second innings. Now, first things first, Shamar Brooks has hit a century. I think it was 124. Rakeem Cornwall got a 5-fer and a 39. For Sammy Permol got a 5-fer. Chase hit a 40 and a 60 and picked up a couple of wickets. Jermaine Blackwood hit a 60-odd and Craig Brathwaite hit 70-odd. Now, there's been other performances. Roach was very economical, for example. So there's been other performances, but those are what I would call the standout performances thus far in the best versus best game. So what does this mean? Now, I've seen quite a lot online already suggesting that because Shamar Brooks has hit a century, he should walk back into the West Indies test side. Now, I have an issue with this. Now, first things first, I have nothing personal against Shamar Brooks. I actually think Shamar Brooks is an okay player. And as Chatil, if he's watching this, has pointed out to us on the social media handles, Shamar Brooks, when he debuted for the West Indies, has only played away from home. So he played in India versus Afghanistan, played in England, played in New Zealand, opted out of the Bangladesh tour. So he's never actually had a home series. Now, Shamar Brooks was dropped before the Bangladesh. Shamar Brooks didn't tour Bangladesh and then wasn't able to get back into his side because of obviously what happened in Bangladesh. Now, his test average at the time of not being able to get back into the side was 28. Just let that sit there, marinate. I'm not saying that means he's not good enough. I'm just saying that was his test average. And along with players like Shai Hope and along with players like Roston Chase, lots of them have got dropped, I should say, or weren't recalled due to very middling to poor performances for the West Indies. Okay. But that said, Shamar Brooks has hit a century. So let's deal with Brooks first and foremost. Is there a way back into the West Indies side for Shamar Brooks? For me personally, the answer is no. Now, let me explain why. The West Indies side, we know what happened against South Africa. It was a shambles. So before anyone talks to me about but what happened in South Africa, what happened versus South Africa? Yeah, it was a mess in terms of batting. But there is no obvious position for a batsman to get into the West Indies test side. And let me explain. Craig Brathwaite is the captain, and he is going to open. That's not open for debate. So I'm going to go through the side and explain this. Craig's going to open. Now, it's worth pointing out that I was one of the ones who, prior to Craig being named captain, was saying that Craig deserved to be dropped. I'm sure if Craig ever came on the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, you know what I'm like. I'd put it on. I'd stick it to him. And I'd say, Craig, until you were made captain, you were on the way out. And if he's honest with himself, he would, I'd hope, admit that. Remember, he lost the vice captaincy when we went to New Zealand. But since getting the captaincy, Craig versus Bangladesh averaged 37. Versus Sri Lanka at home, he averaged 59. Now, obviously, versus the South Africans, admittedly, everyone flopped. He only averaged 7. Craig's not getting dropped. Okay, take those averages again. 37, 59, 7. Okay, he's not getting dropped. And he's the captain anyway, so I don't know why I'm having to explain that. Who opens alongside Craig? I'm going to come back to that. Number 3, Nkrumah Bonner is going to come back into this side. Okay, and he has to. There is no argument I am willing to accept that does not have Nkrumah Bonner back in the side. And that's nothing you can see the Jamaica flag behind me. Nothing to do with any Jamaican bias. Nkrumah Bonner came to the party when he was called up after all those dropouts versus Bangladesh. He came to the party, man of the series. Sri Lanka came to the party again. So versus Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, he's got 2 50s and a century, an average of 58 versus Bangladesh, an average of 72 versus Sri Lanka. He only played 1 innings versus South Africa and then was out because of concussion. So there is no way Nkrumah Bonner gets dropped. Absolutely no way. What's the justification? I couldn't care less who hits a century in a warm-up match. Bonner walks back into the side. He has to. He hasn't done anything to deserve being dropped. Does that mean he's going to succeed versus Pakistan? Not necessarily. But his place is still open for him, as far as I'm concerned. Batting at 4. Now, these positions between 4 and 6 could go in any order, but I'm putting at 4 Roston Chase. Let us give Roston Chase his due. Okay. Roston got dropped after, Roston pulled out of going to Bangladesh. I think he was going to get dropped anyway. But remember, he was one of the players who opted out and then was unable to get his place back for the Bangladesh tour. Couldn't get back in for Sri Lanka either. But Roston has been playing in those best versus best games that have been happening on our home stretch of cricket and has shown some strong performances. So with respect to Roston Chase, in that South Africa series, he actually was he was our top average scoring batsman with only 25, which is poor, I hasten to add. But he was one of only 2 batsmen for us who actually managed to get over 50. And remember, Roston got injured in the second test and was unable to bat in the second innings. I believe it was, the second innings of the second test. Correct me if I'm wrong, if it was both innings, but I think it was the second innings of the second test. He was unable to come back out and bat because he pulled his hamstring, which also kept him out of the ODI series versus Australia. In this best versus best game, Roston has hit a 40 and he's hit a 60 and he's also taken some wickets. So based on my understanding the situation as me looking at it, Roston keeps his place. And the other reason that Roston keeps his place, which will become apparent as I go through the side, is that Roston offers off spin, which means he's offering he's got two particular talents here. And if, as I think, Rakeem Cornwall doesn't play in the first test match, Roston has to play because he offers you that somewhere between part-time to full-time spin option. So I think Roston plays. 5, Jermaine Blackwood, vice captain. First things first, Blackwood has to play as vice captain. But I am going to say now that Dads, as we should actually call him, is on thin ice. Bangladesh, Jermaine Blackwood averaged 28, 150. Sri Lanka, he averaged 11, no 50s, no 100s. South Africa, he averaged 22, no 50s, no 100s, but he did show a bit of a fight in one of those innings. Now, if Jermaine Blackwood didn't have the vice captaincy, he should be dropped. That's 3 test series in a row where he's been subpar. Okay, maybe Bangladesh, you can give him a pass because he got a 50. But that's 3 test series in a row. What is keeping Jermaine Blackwood in the side, other than the vice captaincy, is the fact he was our best batsman in 2020 when we went to England and when we went to New Zealand. I think the goodwill is keeping him in the side. That goodwill keeps him in my side for the first test. But should Jermaine Blackwood struggle again, then anyone who's calling for Shamar Brooks, that's when I agree with you that maybe someone like a Shamar Brooks comes in, or possibly a Shea Hope. I'll explain later why I'm saying that, or even possibly a Darren Bravo. But the point is, of the top 6, it is Jermaine Blackwood who is most at risk, I think, right now. But I think the good faith and the fact he's vice captain probably keeps him in the test side. And he's also scored a 60-odd in the best versus best game. So you add all those things together and he probably just about keeps his place. 6, Carl Mayers. Now, Blackwood and Mayers could swap between 5 and 6. Carl Mayers, I don't even know why I'm having to explain. He struggled against South Africa. I'm not denying that. But can we also remember that against South Africa, he took 6 wickets at 13. Against Sri Lanka, he took 4 wickets at 11. Now, against Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, he averaged 87. Obviously, the 210 not out. Sri Lanka, he averaged 50, got 2 50s in that test series. Carl Mayers isn't going anywhere. So he's a certainty in the side. And he's kind of skillful, medium-paced bowling. I'm not even calling it medium fast. I'm going to call it medium. But skillful, medium-paced bowling is an asset, as we saw against South Africa and Sri Lanka. Holder at 7, no explanation needed. Josh De Silva at 8, no explanation needed, although he struggled badly versus South Africa. But again, there's enough goodwill in the tank from Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, which keeps Josh in the side. So he's there at 8. So then we get to the bowlers. At the moment, I've got it as Jayden Seals, obviously debuted versus South Africa, 5 wickets at 31. I think Jayden Seals keeps his place. He's leapfrogged Alzarri Joseph, which says more about Alzarri Joseph than it does about Jayden Seals. But remember, Jayden Seals has not played in this best versus best game. He is one of the Trini players who has come in later than therefore missed this game. So like I say, unless there is a little 2-day game on like a Monday and a Tuesday before the test match, I'm not certain what's happening here for the Trini players who have come in late to prepare for the test series. But anyways, I've got Jayden Seals, Kamar Roach, no explanation needed. Then the last place, obviously if Joseph's in the side, the batting order would change. The last place for me is between Shannon Gabriel and Alzarri Joseph. So Seals and Roach get in. Now notice that I've not included Rakeem Cornwall. The word coming out from Sabina Park from the creators is that this pitch is going to be fast, which is a problem. We saw what happened versus South Africa. But the word from the creators is this pitch is going to carry a bit of zip, which tells me that the track they must be practicing on in the best versus best game is not the one that obviously they're going to be playing on in the test match, because it's the spinners who have taken the majority of the wickets. Although an interview we put on our Twitter feed, the interview with Sami Permol for Kaitor News out in Guyana, he's saying, the pitch wasn't even spinning that much, which probably tells you more about our technique as batsmen versus spin. I leave Raheem Cornwall out for this test match. And the reason I leave him out is because it was a mistake versus South Africa to go in with Chase and Cornwall. I don't think you go in with 2 off spinners. If you're gonna play Chase, you don't play Cornwall. That's my take. It's one or the other with those particular 2 bowlers. So the only way you have a spinner, and Guyana fans about to be happy here, the only way you have a spinner is if Chase plays, the other spinner has to be Warrican or Permol. Permol has out-bowled Warrican in these best versus best games. So if it's me, you possibly go to Permol. But remember what Warrican did in Bangladesh. That said, I don't think we're playing another spinner. I think we're just playing one, and I think it's going to be Chase, which means it's going to be the seamers, which means it's Gabriel or Joseph. Obviously, it should be Shannon Gabriel. But we've seen now in 2 back-to-back test series, Sri Lanka and South Africa, that Shannon Gabriel has broken down. I'm saying right now, it's a huge risk to play Shannon Gabriel if you are not certain. And again, Trini player wasn't there in the best versus best warm-up games. I think Fazair Mohammed said this on comms for the South Africa series. What has been done, or he said at the time, what's going to be done. But now I'm saying what has been done between the end of the South Africa series and the start of this Pakistan series. What has been done to guarantee that Shannon Gabriel will not break down in a test match series? If Shannon Gabriel is anything other than 100% fit, he cannot play in this test match. Because we've seen what's happened. We've had to carry him as a result. He's either 100% fit and he plays, or we don't play him. Now, if we don't play him, Alzarri Joseph plays. And it's time that Alzarri Joseph comes to the party properly in red ball cricket. But that last place is between Gabriel and Joseph, and I think that's relatively self-explanatory. Some of you might disagree and say play the extra spinner. So that would mean our seamers would be Seals, Roach, Holder, Chase, and Seals, Roach, Holder, Mayers as a medium pace, whatever you want to call him, swing bowler. Then you have Chase and a left arm spinner as the spinning options. That's a possibility. I'm not saying that we shouldn't do that, but I'm going off what the curators are saying at Sabina and saying this deck is going to have some zip. And if that's the case, I'm not going in with 2 spinners. So those who have been following my team will note that there's one position I've missed out. Who's opening with Craig? It's either Kieran Powell or it's Shea Hope, because Brooks isn't an opener. Some of you are like messaging me going, "Oh, why don't we try him?" No, because you're not playing there in any warm-up games. Why would you? He don't play there for Barbados, so no. Prior to the South Africa series, Hope was the one making runs in an opener's position in the best versus best game and I think the President's 11 game versus Sri Lanka, etc. Powell then came in because of the concussion to Nkrumah Bonner. Because Powell made a 50 versus South Africa, one of only 2 batsmen to make 50, Chase was the other. There is an argument that says Kieran Powell must keep his place because his position is, he is an opener. He's used to it. Yes, historically for the West Indies, he has not performed anywhere near consistently, apart from when he first came into the side in the early 13s, 14s, etc. 2000s, that is. Hope was the one, though, making runs in all the warm-up games prior to the South Africa series. And if you remember, it was Hope who actually started the South Africa series opening alongside Craig. And then Kieran came in because of the concussion substitution. I'm going to put this back to you lot. Do you open with Powell or do you open with Hope? Kieran got a 50. Technically, that means he should stay in the side, but he hasn't made a score in this warm-up game. If the warm-up games matter as much as some people believe them to, does that mean Kieran then doesn't play versus Pakistan? I actually don't have an answer. I actually don't have an answer for you. I'm just setting out what almost the parameters are. And I'm putting it back on you lot to tell me, what would you do? But what you'll notice with my 11, as I've gone through it and dissected it, is that there is no Brooks in my team. Because how does he get in the team? And like I say, the only possible way Shamar Brooks makes my team is if you drop Jermaine Blackwood, who's the vice captain. But Jermaine Blackwood made runs in the best versus best game as well. So the fact he's vice captain means that he probably will keep his place. Brooks can get in the squad. or like if there's a 30-man squad, you don't know what might happen. There might be another concussion protocol and he might have to play and so on and so forth. But right now, as things stand, despite his 120 odd in the warm-up game, he doesn't make it for me. That's a little 20-minute cuss-out session looking at the makeup of the potential West Indies team versus Pakistan. As I said at the top, you know what to do. Like, subscribe if you're not already subscribing, share it with your friends, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram. We're just out here, Caribbean Cricket Podcast, trying to make sure that there's a more diverse media narrative, particularly over here in the UK when it comes to West Indies cricket news. So hit that follow button, hit that subscribe button, do whatever it is that you need to. But more importantly of all, comment below and let me know what you think about my views on the West Indies 11 versus Pakistan. Peace.